I did not think that it merited this amount of extra reward after I've enjoyed monthly, salaries. Of course, the other privileges, whether I enjoy them or not, is neither here nor there, but they're supposed to be there. Some free medical care for those who wanted it, and which I didn't enjoy. But I thought the salaries were more than enough. So I decided right and then, and there's no way I could spend that money. That money must go back to government. You see, there may be good reason to pay ex-gratia, awards or end of service awards to certain categories of government workers, public workers. For example, parliamentarians may have to leave whatever they were doing to serve the nation for a period. Okay? So if they will no more return to parliament, there may be the need to give some end of service benefits. How much should be given is subject to, a bit of analysis, okay, that will respect also the situation in our country and the plight of the average Ghanaian. Some people must not be made to look like a different class of people. But coming to my particular case, the Council of State's work is part-time work by mostly retired citizens. Is I'm saying, Council of State work should not take you away from what you already have been doing, okay? And therefore, it's not a case that you need to be compensated at the end of it all when you are like being thrown out of job. You see, so I do not think that the work that I did merited it. But let me assure you, I was one of the most active participants in the Council of State, and I was chairman of the Economy and Special Development Initiatives Committee, which never met without me. Okay. So I was one of the most active participants in our general meetings, and I led the team on the Economy and Special Development Initiatives. But nonetheless, I cannot deny the fact that it was part-time work, it wasn't full-time work, and I did that after 4 years. I deserved a colossal 365,000 Ghana cedis. That's a big man. That's a big amount of money.
So that was the Abubu Mefi of the Asogli State Togbe after the 14th, speaking on, sharing his thoughts on why he felt he had to return the 365,000 Ghana cedis ex-gratia paid to him. That has led to a whole debate on morality, on relevance, a whole lot of things, and I'm sure my guests will have a lot to say. Let me introduce them. We'll be joined today via Zoom by a former member of the Council of State, Dr. Nico Tejani. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, is not joining us via Zoom today. He's here in person. Franklin, good morning.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's been a while. I've managed to force your hand to show up. It's good to see you. I will do so. Alec Plemagwamavia is a private legal practitioner. You'll understand why he's on the panel this morning in a bit. He's had legal battles over certain parts of our constitution that is related to this. Alec, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Dr. Eric Odrosang is a governance and public financial management analyst who will join us via Zoom as well. Dr. Odrosang, good morning. Okay, I'll get to Dr. Odrosang in a bit. And then Ambassador Sampiale, long-time politician, former CEO, National Pensions Regulatory Authority, senior politician. There's a lot we could add to that, but let's keep it simple. Everybody knows who he is. Good morning, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to speak to you. But I'll begin the conversation via Zoom with a recent member of the Council of State, Dr. Nico Tejani. Dr. Tejani, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
If you could unmute your microphone, sir.
I put my microphone on mute.
Oh, okay. No. It's okay. I can hear you now.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure you followed the conversation this week with much interest, having served on the panel. And I'll begin from the basic question that a lot of people are asking. Do we really need a Council of State?
Yeah, thank you very much. This debate about the pardon my voice. I'm down recovery, so my voice is a bit down and cracking. So you should pardon my voice.
No problem.
The debate about the relevance of the Council of State has been going on for some time now, and it is partly because the Council of State has not make its work public, and so the public actually doesn't know what the Council of State does. But the Council of State is very, very, very important and very, very relevant. When we open your eyes to know what the Council of State actually, that you'll be shocked and you'll be amazed. The kind of intervention we made as a Council of State, I mean, with a short time I have served on the Council of State, we have done some good and great job, and I think the Council of State is relevant. I think that the issue and the problem of the Council of State is the way it's being politicized in recent times, and that is what we have to look at its constitution again and see what we can do about it.
But what do you mean by there's a problem with its composition? That's what it's always been, and you've just told us that it serves a good purpose. It's made certain interventions. So what is the problem with the composition?
Well, I would say sometimes the quality of members of the Council of State is not too good. I mean, we have to call it a spade. I mean, I have served on the Council of State, and sometimes you realize that political parties, especially ruling government, always try to influence those who serve on the Council of State. But remember that the framers of the Constitution want the Council of State to be politically neutral, and that is why they have not made it partisan. But we try to influence who become a member of the Council of State and who serve on the Council of State. And so you realize that the Council of State is becoming like an extension of Parliament, you know, so partisan. And that is where the issue is. And so sometimes we are unable to say it to authority what should be done and what should not be done. And so that's why I made a comment I did.
But does that bother on the lines of elected members and appointed members? When you talk about
both, I mean, I would say that I would say both, and I say both. I mean, with apology. When I contested the Council of State, I contested on my own. I was not sponsored by any political party, and I won on merit. I mean, but I don't think that can be said to others. I mean, and then you see that from all regions. I mean, political parties try to influence. You know, I mean, who serve on the Council of State. I mean, DCBs are involved. I mean, party executive are involved and all that. So, I mean, there's no anybody on the Council of State now who say that I'm there because I'm independent minded person. I contested even for the regions and I won. If not, they're influenced by their political party one way or the other.
I am interested in understanding the functions that you perform. So if you could, for instance, walk us through your typical day as a Council of State member, what would you do?
Okay, so the Council of State, the Constitution is one. The Council of State will principal advisor to the President and Parliament, and all government institutions that may need Council of State advice. So, for example, we as a Council of State, we receive correspondence from President, from appointment to policies, etc. and etc. And so the Council of State has to sit down, look at it, review it, and then sometimes invite consultants, professionals, and seek their opinion. And then the Council of State then advise the president what, in our opinion, should be the way forward. So that's what we do as a Council of State. Now, on the Council of State, we sometimes take initiative. I mean, issues that are happening in the society, in the country, and they invite people and relevant people and give them an advice what should be done and what should not be done. A typical example, well, like in 2019, for example, we have to take initiative when we realized that there was energy crisis looming. You know, we have to bring all the relevant agencies and bodies together, and we have made this country from doing so. It will be disaster, because once we are bringing the teams together, rather there's that issue that was not being addressed, and that's when we have to come in and ensure that institutions play their role very well, and those issues were resolved, and that averted the country from plugging the country into doing so. So yes, so that's what we go through on a daily basis. Now, there are sometimes that the president, for example, I represent the Greater Accra region, that there are issues in the Greater Accra region with a chieftaincy or something, and then if sometimes the president will invite you and seek your opinion on certain issues, you know, about chieftaincy or anything in the region, and then you have to give the president your opinion. And sometimes you have to also consult people within the region, stakeholders, and you get their opinions. And once you get a general opinion of people, then you'll be able to relate it to the authorities. So yeah.
And did you get the feeling that your opinions, your suggestions were valued and accepted at the offices of the president?
I would say yes and no. Don't forget that the advice of a Council of State or a member of the Council of State is not binding on the president. I mean, so that's one. But two, and is that also doesn't mean that you are the only person the president seek opinion and advice from. So sometimes you give the president advice or institutional advice, and you realize how to do otherwise. But I mean, you can't fault them actually. But I would say that in my short time, yeah, there are one or two things that I might have pointed to authorities, and they listen, and it works. So and one or two. I'm not in a position to disclose the details of those.
Certainly. I'm not asking for details, but like I said, I'm just trying to understand how it functions. What are meeting days like? Do you have regular attendance at meetings?
Yes. So for example, the council meets like in our 7 council of state that I serve on. We draw a timetable, and we actually meet 3 times a month. That is supposed to be a regular meeting. But apart from this, that's 3 times a month as a regular meeting. We also have committee meetings, and sometimes ad hoc meetings come on, and sometimes you have to meet at presidency and all that. But the regular meeting is 3 times a month. And that's how we make it.
And members show up regularly? That's what I want to know. Do they show up during your time? Were members showing up for these meetings?
Don't forget that there is the council can only meet when they have a quorum. And there was no any time that I could remember that we went for a meeting and we couldn't form a quorum. And therefore, I cannot say, or nobody can say that we don't meet regular, and members don't attend meetings regular, because we always form a quorum. It's all like Parliament. That sometimes they have to change their meetings because they couldn't form a quorum. I can say with certainty that we always form a quorum for our meetings.
Well, what are your thoughts on being paid for this particular service?
Pay as a salary or pay as what?
Yes, because you do receive a salary, and then after that, ex-gratia. So let's talk about salaries and then ex-gratia.
Of course, I mean, everybody must be paid for the service you provide. I mean, and so you are paying. Look, let's say salaries that are paid to members of the Council of State. I mean, I'm not in a position to to judge whether it's sufficient or not sufficient, because I'm coming from the private sector.
Yeah.
So I will not be able to know whether it's enough or it's not enough, so far as I'm concerned. But yes, we are sorry, and I think that it's well deserved, because if you look at some of the work that we do, I mean, I remember there was some time that though we're supposed to meet like 3 times a month, there are sometimes that for like 3 weeks we are meeting, because there are issues that need urgent attention, and we have to meet, and sometimes meet deep into the night and all that. So yes, I mean, I think the salary is well deserved, and it's well deserved. Yeah.
Well, there are thoughts that some persons on the Council of State work in other capacities, state capacities. So they are paid by the state for doing the work that they are doing. Also, as Council of State members, you also have people who are at a certain level of statesmanship, one would say, on it. So people ask the question, why do we have these kinds of payments?
I don't know because the Constitution is clear. I mean, and I don't know the people who are working in other state organizations. I heard some people who are receiving double salary and all that. I don't know about it. I don't know those who actually working at other state institutions that have been paid salary and that are also serving on the Council of State. But certainly, if there's something like that, it must be corrected, as we are having Parliament, because we are having double salary issues in Parliament. So if you happen at the Council of State, it's something that must be corrected. But I don't know anybody who is actually receiving a double salary because he's actually doing another work for the state organization that is being compensated. And what I know is we have some members of the Council of State that are board chairmen and board members. But you know that board members and board chairmen are not paid salary. You only get board fees of board city allowances. So I don't know about that. So maybe if you know one or two, you can mention it to me and then we can look at it. I don't know.
Okay, now let's talk about the specific issue of ex-gratia. For Togbe Afede's own, he returned 365,000 Ghana cedis, and his rationale was, well, he was being paid monthly, so why would he need to take ex-gratia at the end of it? That is his personal decision. What are your thoughts on the payment of ex-gratia to members of the Council of State?
Now, let me comment on Togbe's own, and I'll come to mine. So I think that Togbe has provoked our conscience, and he has raised some very important issues that we have to look at it as a country. What I'm not too comfortable with, if you use the word inappropriate. I mean, because it's a constitutional provision, and neither the president or Parliament or anybody can alter it unless we deal with the root of the issue, that's the Constitution. So that's about it. But I think that Togbe has raised our conscience, and we all have to look at it. But let me say that you may not know what people use their ex-gratia money for. I mean, with those that we represent regions, we spend our own money in doing so many things for the region. I mean,
as Council of State members?
Of course. Like
what? Yeah, tell me about that.
No, like I said, is that, you see, Council of State is Onupa Bello. I don't know, they are elders of the
yes.
Of the state. And so as elders of the state, you have responsibility. You'll be shocked. These district assemblies and chiefs, as particular, coming to your house each and every day, seeking your intervention and your support, because you're a Council of State. Yes, I mean, you'll be surprised. With those that we represent the region, that's what happened, And sometimes we have to even go to districts and pick information for independent information for government and all that on our own account, But that's the decision you have made to serve. And so for me, that's not a problem for me. And so people might have used their money for something else. I mean, somebody might have decided to donate his money to charity or to something, and that's the personal view. Togbe Afede my very good friend, is of the view that he has to refund his money because he doesn't think he deserves it. And I think that is his personal opinion, and it should be respected. I mean, what the rest of us do, I mean, should also be respected. But what I say is that what we have done has awakened our conscience. I mean, that look, there's a way that if you have to pay some money that you don't think you deserve it, you need to retain it. I think he has done. But perhaps tomorrow, I may also think that, look, based on what Toby has done, I also want to refund my money, and that's about it. So I don't think that the debate about whether Council of State members deserve ex-gratia is neither here nor there. It has been in the Constitution 92. And if we think that we want to stop it, let's amend the Constitution and let's move forward. But the argument I say they are undeserving and all that, I don't think it's fair, because the Council of State members really do a lot of work for this country, and I think that we should appreciate them and we should stop the kind of criticism and some people insult their resident members of the Council of State. And I don't think it's fair.
So just to wrap this part up with you, you will not support those who say, let's rethink the existence of the Council of State.
No, I don't think so. What I say I think should be done is that let's look at the recomposition, the composition of the Council of State. I don't think so. I am, one time I suggested that, look, even with the ex-official members, apart from the President of the National House of Chiefs, the Chief of Defense Staff, retired Chief of Defense Staff, retired Chief Justice, and retired IGP, we should have made the Constitution and made it immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, immediate past IGP, immediate past Chief Justice. That's tied the President hand. And therefore, when they come on the Council of State, they become independent. Number two, the way the Council of State members are elected from the regions that the parties try to influence it, must find a way of stopping it. Some of the people the President appoints on the Council of State, and I'm not referring to this current Council 8
or 7.
No,
we understand you are speaking in general terms. Go on.
Some of the quality. Look, we sometimes you go on the Council of State, and I'll tell you that, out of 25, maybe the people who actually contribute to debate, they became. It's all right. Those are the things that we should look at. Apart from that, I think the Council of State is very, very important. Recently, you saw that the Council of State tried to intervene between the minority and majority on the issues that happen in Parliament. And that is bringing some decency in Parliament. I can tell you without any control that nobody and no organ will be able to do that apart from the Council of State. On when I was on the Council of State, there was a similar issue that I tried to bring both the minority to council, so that council asked them to stop certain things that they were doing. Though it didn't go too well, it helped in one way or the other. So, and that one also didn't go too well because it was politicized. So once we stop to politicize the Council of State, we'll have a beautiful institution to help our democratic dispensation.
And just to clarify this, as my final question to you, did you get the sense that institutions like Parliament, the executive, and others respect the Council of State and its members and its opinions?
Very, very much. That I can tell you without any contradiction.
There's legitimacy. You think the Council of State has legitimacy with these institutions?
Very well. I very much. I will tell you that the institutions of state respect the Council of State so much, and that one, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. But I think the politicization of the Council of State is a problem. Apart from that, I think that the Council of State is a fantastic institution to have within our system.
Oh, all right, then. Thank you very much, Dr. Nico Tej. And I know you have a busy morning ahead of you, so you asked for a specific time frame. So you can stay on if you want to hear the others, but let me come in studio. I have Dr. Eric Odrosai as well via Zoom. I'll get to him in a bit. But let me start from you, Franklin. You come from the civil society part of this, and I'm sure Togbe Afede's act would have raised your eyebrows and you'd have asked yourself, why did it take so long?
Well, first of all, I think the issue of ex-gratia should have become one of the topical, probably the highlights of the Council of State's conversations and advice to the President as well, to the extent that that has been a thorny issue that has been discussed ad infinitum in this country, with a lot of political actors either supporting or not supporting it, and a lot of lay watchers like us just asking ourselves, what is the merit in paying ex-gratia? I would have wished that of all the periodicals and the periodicals that we receive from the Council of State, I've not seen any publication whatsoever. I've not seen any item on the Council of State's agenda that included the issue of ex-gratia. Now, if you're advising the government or the President on how to be accountable to the people of the country, that's their mission statement, by the way. You'd have thought that accountability means earning what you probably is also well deserved. If you do not earn it and it's not well deserved, it should become a matter of importance to the Council of State. But all the periodicals I've received, and these are typically pamphlets, meetings, discussions on issues that I would not necessarily think are too essential for a Council of State. But again, the point I'm making is that this issue about ex-gratia should have occupied the minds of the Council of State itself. To have had, we should have seen some statements or whatever advice they ever gave the President or the government or the people of the country on ex-gratia.
But some
I'm just saying.
The cynics will also say, well, people just don't apply to be on the Council of State or lobby to be on the Council of State simply because they want to give advice. There are benefits. The benefits is ex-gratia.
Of course, clearly, I mean, it has become like a party train, really. And so I do not want to yield to the cynics per se, because in any case, the President's power to appoint, and he's asking for more, by the way. He wanted 17 people instead of 11, right? Did you know that?
Interesting.
Right. And if you look at the composition, 16 now represented from the various regions, and then he has the power to appoint 11 so far. He's not gotten the 17 yet. If you look at it, then what Nee is saying, clearly the balance of power, if you look at it, clearly shows that they are mostly going to be a bit of yes men. That may not necessarily be a problem, but you see the quality of advice that you need could be called into question. But let's not, the point I'm making is that if the Council of State was such an important organ, it could have been seized, it should have been seized with the facts surrounding these whole issues about double payment, ex-gratia. We've not heard anything. In fact, it's not come before us. And probably why am I even asking for this? Because maybe they also get ex-gratia. So the next question I ask myself is, what exactly is the importance of the Council of State? Listening to me and the periodicals I read from the Council of State, I think we are better off if we have Council of Advisors on topical subjects, Council of Advisors on the economy, Council of Advisors on technology and science, Council of Advisors. And by the way, while calling for these specific councils, I'm not calling for representation from electoral representatives on the various regions, because that becomes something else. That becomes like an extension of the party. No. In serious, highly effective countries, they just don't have a Council of State made up of people the President can handpick, and people have to be elected politically or go for elections to be on the Council of State, knowing very well that those could be gamed, as Nee is saying, right? And a serious serious country, I would have wished that we should have proper, what are the ills of this country when it comes to economic management? We clearly speaking, this is one area we are lacking effectively, right? So my point essentially is that instead of having this broad arrangement where you have council of state with different people who may not be effective at meetings or makes important contributions as Nii is suggesting, why don't we just abolish the entire thing? And if we want to have serious advice, the president wants to have serious advice on topical issues, we should ensure that we are looking at councils of eminent persons, probably not more than 5 or 6 at the point in time, advising on debt. What has the council said about escalating debt, which is swallowing us to the extent that now Ghana is at the risk of defaulting? What is the Council of State saying on that? What's the Council of State position on the president's dream to have a cathedral, which eventually has now led to the state funding it with hoping sums of money? What's the Council of State advice on that? If its mission is supposed to be holding the government or ensuring accountable governance.
So with what you said, just, because your thoughts seem to be similar to those shared by Professor Ajimandia this week, Professor Bafo Ajimandia, who says the advisory role of the Council of State as it is now is nebulous and redundant.
Extremely
and
true.
I'm just taking a few quotes from him. He says, what is the real mandate? And he was speaking on PM Express earlier this week. He says, what's the real mandate of the council? In essence, to provide advice to the president. And as the constitution requires, certain nominees of the president should go to the council for ratification, so to speak. These are the two key functions. Now, his point is that the president already has advisors for certain. So he has a senior advisor on economics. He has a senior advisor on national security. We have someone like Osafo Mafu, who is above everybody else when it comes to advisors. So, in his mind, what exactly what do they do? And then his second query is on the composition, and he is saying that the council was reserved, well, if the spirit of it was that it was supposed to be reserved for accomplished people who were mostly retired, and thus deciding to pay them for a service which should be voluntary was akin to creating jobs for people who did not need jobs in the first place. So if you put that and what you're saying together.
It's actually true. Prof is right on the money. And clearly, again, back to the issue about the importance of the Council of State. How many people were gunned down or killed during the last elections? You remember about, I've forgotten the number, 8 or 9 or so persons. We haven't heard, we still don't know what happened to those people. But the Council of State is made up of ex-Chief Justice, right? And then an ex-IGP and what have you. I'll be keen to know exactly what sort of advice they're giving, even if they give. And we haven't seen any action on those pieces of advice. Then you have to call yourself into question as to the relevance of the body. So for me, beyond the issue of ex-gratia, I ask myself, of what use? You look at the composition, and Nii is right. What exactly is being done at that council that other entities that could have been established on a needs basis cannot do? The numbers are even too many, right? And they are billowing money that we could possibly use for something essential. So I would call for specific expertise on topical issues that we know. If Ghana is facing a debt overhang or a debt iceberg, I'd like to know which body would have been set up to advise the president on it, even though I know that the president has a senior minister in terms of when it comes to advising on the economy. So it's about time, really, that we
it should go?
It definitely should have gone long ago. I really don't see the need of the Council of State, seriously.
Okay, so that's you. Let me come to Ambassador Sampiali, then I'll talk legal language with Eliklim Agbemava on the Council of State. Ambassador, I'm sure you've heard this and you followed this significantly, and you're a long-time politician. Council of State.
All these arguments for and against the Council of State came before the Consultative Assembly. I was a member of the Consultative Assembly. And at that time, the general thinking was that we should have a bit of our traditional system of, when the chief assistant, so let us go and see that blower for consultation. Because at that time, we had almost all the powerful chiefs in Ghana at the Consultative Assembly. And after their failure to establish a second chamber, then they settled on the Council of State. But in the end, I think the mandate that was given to the Council of State in the Constitution has outlived its usefulness. The mandate has outlived its usefulness. One, in terms of how the Council of State is composed, the membership, like Nee is saying. Now, the last I've contested once as a Council of State for Central Region. But the last one that were contested, you could see that all the members that constituted the Electoral College at the region were district chief executives and party chairmen. There, all across the country, district chief executives and party chairmen.
Really?
I'm telling you. And in areas where the district chief executive or the party chairman did not feature, the party had a strong hand in selecting who the system members should be. And I think Nee acknowledged that. Now, aside of the regional representation, which has been usurped by the executive, the president on his own can appoint 11. So it's 16 plus 11. Okay? So that is the lot. Then the president will also appoint a former chief justice. And until recently, it was the place was vacant. Then a former IGP. You understand? And the former CDS. And in this selection, the former IGP and the CDS had been appointed by the MPP. And so they also add up to the list of pro-government appointees. So in terms of the composition, that's the challenge we are facing now. Now, the 11 members were supposed to be technocrats, like Franklin was saying, that we need an economist to be able to give direction as to what we are going about. But again, the 11, by the current composition, you know who they are. And then there are some chiefs who have been on the Council of State for how many years, and for what reason they still are kept there, I don't understand. So that is the Council of State and its composition. Now, if you, as a country, we are paying for the services of a certain group, then we expect certain output from the group. But the deficiency that came out of the Constitution itself is that it gave the Council of State only an advisory role to advise the president. And at a certain portion of the Constitution also say that no institution or authority is bound to accept or implement the decision of the Council of State. So it is just an advisory body. Suggest whatever you can. Either we take it or don't take it, it doesn't matter. But you will see that whether the advice was taken or not taken, we'll pay them. You see what I'm saying? So that challenge is what I have. That you have a body that the executive has built up as an appendage to advise them. And to advise the president means that they are going to advise the president for the general good. Not so, for the general good of the people. So, for example, when a media man is killed, when the police bullion ban is attacked and the policeman is killed, it should give the Council of State a certain indication that there's a rising level of insecurity in the country. So what does the Council of State say? Again, we have all gone through COVID, and there are chances that the COVID may come again. We spend so much money on the COVID. there's a whole value about the accountability. Remember, Chief, that the basic spirit of this constitution is accountability and transparency. So if even me, an ordinary man, a former ambassador, said, oh, I'm not too sure about how the government is accounting for something, it must attract the interest of the Council of State. Are you following me? Yes. And to the extent that the government appoints ministers and other people in consultation with the Council of State, it means that the failure of any of such appointees can be traced or attributable to the kind of people the Council of State approved for appointment. Are you following me? So if you have somebody who sits in front of camera and does not even understand the ministry is going to chair to head, it is a problem. And the Council of State approves. The Council of State ought to know that the basic ingredients of food security in this country is fertilizer for our farmers because of the rain-fed agriculture. Are you following what I'm saying?
Sir.
So if the government says that I am selling fertilizer to farmers, and the previous stock of fertilizers were kept to such an extent that it got spoiled, and you saw a video of a man who was showing us fertilizers on the street, and he was arrested. The Council of State ought not to have looked at that drama alone. They should have known that, look, selling fertilizer to workers, farmers, we eventually
Bring a problem
of food shortages. If we have not had Ukraine to blame, that should be the beginning of the problem. You know, so I had expected the Council of State to do more than just advising the president, because in their the law, the constitution, they can on their own take certain decisions. Now, if you want to come to persons with capability or mandate to advise the president, look at the NDPC, the overstaffed NDPC. Their role is to advise the government on national development, not so? Not so?
Yes, please.
So, between them, who are technocrats, and the Council of State members, who may be assembly members and ordinary members like myself, who has the capacity to advise the president on national development than the NDPC? If you want to talk on science, you know, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, whatever, there's a council there. If you want to talk about human resource, recruiting in HR, you have putting right people at the right jobs. Otherwise, forget about the job being done. So the country has the Public Services Commission. You know them? Who have the mandate to scrutinize persons who want to serve in the public service. We ignore them. And today between us, men are a brave party no, and a man yahi. Right? When the president was coming to London, I was carrying him. I was chauffeuring the president, and they come and we appoint them as ministers. What has the Council of State said about that? Allowing us to ignore the Council for Public Services Commission and appointing anybody as if ministerial appointments are what? Ex-gratia for political activists.
So you think overall their usefulness has been eroded by political expedience?
Certainly.
But what about the payments though? You've worked on money.
Yes, I'm talking to, when I am paying for somebody's labor, I know what output I'm expecting, like Franklin said. You understand? But if all the examples I have given and Franklin has given, the Council of State have not said anything, then what are we paying for? Chief, what are we paying for? Look at somebody who by the Constitution has to attend meetings at least 4 times in a year. 4 times.
I said 3 times a month.
Okay, let's give them how many times? But there are people who get up at 4 o'clock, go to the market to take market tools. There are people who get up every day to go and sweep. Right? So the comparison of duration of service is a bit of a problem. You understand? First, we have established that the mandate doesn't deserve what they are doing, getting now. Secondly, like my very good friend Toby Afedi said, and complimented by me, Johnny. Look, Chief, this is a country that now virtually borrows money for everything. We borrow money virtually for everything. So it's like a man who initially had money, a big man in the community who had money, and now he doesn't have money to put on his light. He has to go and borrow. To go and fetch water, he has to go and borrow. Everything we are borrowing. Recently, there was this argument about our wage bill, taking about a third of our entire revenue and grants. You understand? So I question myself as a labor man, how much of this goes to actual workers? How much of the payroll that we are talking that is bloated goes to the actual workers who are engaged in productivity? I am not talking about somebody in my party office doing text messages on social media and calling him director communication. What does it bring? What does that person contribute to the productivity of this country that we should go and borrow and pay him? Chief, if even we're generating our own revenue to pay for this, excuse my language, nonsense, I agree. That's our own money. But we don't have the money. You and I, we don't have the money. Everything that we pay now, today, we are borrowing money to pay salaries. These people, they're supposed to be eminent members, isn't it? Therefore, they have been self-made people. Now, you go on retirement. Now we are in my comfort zone. You go on retirement, and by your salary, Franklin knows, you're going to take your biggest lump sum or social security will be what? It will not even be 20,000. Because pension is a factor of your salary. The highest paid pension in this country is about 240,000 cedis. And that is a man who was at the top echelon of salaries. You go and serve for 4 years. You did not lose anything. Because the persons on the council of state, they didn't have to even stop doing anything. My friend Sam Okujatu was a lawyer. He's still a lawyer. He still ran his firm. Sam is supposed to be on retirement now. So even if he's offering free services, if they are even offering free services, it would have been their contribution to the state. But they go in there 4 years. And look at the amount of money that they are taking as ex-gratia. My son, how much does it take to administer this small country of 33 million people? Have you checked? Has that thing struck your mind? How much do we spend in administering this small country? A small country like us, 33 million, right? We have 13 Supreme Court judges. So every 2.5 people have one Supreme Court judge. And all these judges will retire with their salary. And that's gratia. The almighty America, their population, Frank, I think they have 9 Supreme Court judges. 9. India, 9. We, small country, we have 13. Besides that, Court of Appeal judges. And what is the quality of our justice system? Put it aside. We have state-owned enterprises. They are boss, chief executives. And today, the SEOs are even running into deficit. Yeah. How much are we spending on them? Apart from that, you have the executive, which is now about 1,000 plus staff. You come to chief executives of SOEs. You come to chief executives of MMDAs. Chief, somebody should one day sit down and calculate how much do we spend as a country managing this small country and our resources?
Interesting question, Ambassador Sampiali. I'll let you hold it there. Take a quick break. When we return, we'll hear from Elik Nwagwemaba and Dr. Eric Odrosai. Then we'll enter into the second phase of our conversation, the determination of emoluments for Article 71 of its holders. I think Ambassador Piala has already entered that part of the conversation. We'll enter it fully when we return.
Your Saturdays just got frisky. This Saturday, City TV brings to your screens the matriarch of all entertainment shows, The Chat. The most dynamic panelists in the Ghanaian showbiz industry will bring the D to this entertainment discourse.
When you take a certain percentage of someone else's song, you see clearance. And clearly this one, it's more than 8 bars.
We discovered her. I think we watched one YouTube. We're like, nah, this girl, let's put her on.
It.
And from that time till now, I have seen super growth.
There are so many streaming platforms in Ghana. If you go on either iOS app, like Apple Store or Google Play Store, there are so many apps owned by Ghanaians.
It'll be a red couch sitting, full of conversations and updates on what your favorite entertainment personalities have been up to.
So I'm saying that anybody that wants to fix Kwame Eugene according to my kind of music, my kind of style, my kind of dressing, my kind of attitude, anything, you try as much as possible to fix yourself first before you fix me.
What are they doing? Who are they doing it with? And what trends have us fixated? We'll bring you up to speed. It will be an evening of artistic appreciation, indispensable hype, aesthetic punctuation, and the everything of the music and movie industries in Ghana, the African continent, and beyond. So grab some popcorn, get comfy, and join me, AJ Akwako Sapon, on the most riveting entertainment show in Ghana, The Chat comes your way this and every Saturday at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. only on City TV.
Your Sunday evenings will never be the same. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., make a date with me, Frema Dunyame.
And me, Nanatufo, for Upside Down on City TV. From setting the facts straight to intriguing conversations.
Some people still don't know who Stonebwoy is in Ghana, Don't underestimate that. Maybe majority will, but some people. But I believe that so far so good. We're closing the gap.
You don't go to school to believe in what school teaches you. You go to school so you have the key to unlock everything school teaches you.
Fun games and fantastic music. We make your Sunday night come alive.
Every Sunday at 7 p.m. on City TV.
Politics is scary. I've seen friends of mine go into politics, and some of the things they write, I call us, now you get sense. Like, you used to be one of us.
Yeah.
Expect the unexpected with Upside Down.
Upside Down is proudly sponsored by Vodafone.
Together, we can.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Have you missed any business news this week?
Our appeal to the banks that it is not enough to show fat profits at the end of the year, publish them in the newspapers, and feel good.
Are you looking for a way to consume business news without getting lost in all of the technical language? Well, for our traders down here, all they care about is the fact that this could likely affect the cost of doing business.
We used to pay an average of 3,000 somewhere in November. Now it has shoot as much as $12,000 for a 40-footer container.
Business Weekly brings you all the top business stories of the week in an exciting manner.
Business Weekly, Sundays at 3 p.m. only on City TV.
Well, so, are you ready? Let's go.
Business Weekly is sponsored by Standard Chartered Bank. Standard Chartered Bank, here for good.
Welcome back to the big issue on City TV and also on City 973. My name is Godfred Akotoboafo, discussing the relevance of the Council of State and also the need to pay Article 71 office holders certain emoluments. And I've been discussing this with Dr. Nico Tejani, a former member of the Council of State. Franklin Kujo is here, President of Imani Africa, Ambassador Sam Piade, whom we just heard, the former CEO of the National Purchase Regulatory Authority. We are here to hear from Eric Agbemava, who's a private legal practitioner, and Dr. Eric Odrosai, Governance and Public Financial Management Analyst, who is with us via Zoom. And Dr. Odrosai, please bear with me. I'll get to you in just a second. Let me just hear from Eric Plim, but you can also be heard. You can share your messages via WhatsApp lines 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996, 0550 585832, 0550 585832. For those of you who prefer social media, you can reach me via my Twitter handle at East Sportsman with the hashtag The Big Issue, also at City973 using the hashtag The Big Issue. Also, reach us on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on City TV GH and City 973. We're streaming live, so you can share that. And then reach us as well via our YouTube channel when you catch us on playback. Subscribe when you go to CityTube, CITITUBE. Elikim, just hold on a second for me. Since you are here, let me deal with technology and its issues and handle Dr. Eric Odrosai. Dr. Odrosai, good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you've heard all the noise that has been made by Togbe's singular act of returning the ex-gratia that was paid to him, and the debate it has generated from those who support the decision and those who feel it's not justified, to just the public discourse that it has occasioned. What are your thoughts so far?
Thank you very much. And let me say good morning to colleague panelists in studio and those joining us by Zoom, and our viewers and listeners. I think it has generated a lot of interest in the work of the Council of State. I'm happy Ambassador Yale indicated that because he was part of the Consultative Assembly that prepared the Constitution, they had some rationale behind the establishment of the Council of State. I must say that we had an opportunity to review the working processes of the Council of State when we initiated a process to review the 1992 Constitution. Only two issues came up, and those two issues were reducing the numbers and also expanding the mandate of the Council of State so that they can become an advisory service to Parliament, the judiciary, and not only the executive. As it stands now, when you look at Article 89, it is clear that they serve as an advisory body to the executive. But we should also understand that by virtue of the provisions under Article 90, the Council of State also consider bills that have been gazetted or published. So it seems to me that they are supposed to, under the Constitution, perform certain functions. Question we need to ask ourselves is, are they performing the functions as required? And like Ambassador Yale said, if you have a function to perform and it is advisory, and the person you are advising is not bound to accept your advice, is it worth continuing to render that advice? It is a question we all need to answer. But let me come to Togbe's issue. When you look at the Constitution is clear that persons serving on the Council of State that can arguably be said to be an extension of the executive are entitled to allowances and privileges. These allowances and privileges are both when you are serving in office and out of office. When serving in office, it is the duty of the state to give them office accommodation to work from, to give them official vehicle to work with or transportation, and to also give them medical and dental services. When they are out of office, as part of their conditions of service, they are then entitled to this gratuity. And it is not only them, all those who fall under Article 71. These are conditions that are laid bare to all persons who put themselves up for election or appointment or nomination to the Council of State. So it is above board. It is not illegal. But once a member says that, I think I want to donate this money back to the Republic of Ghana, we should commend him. It is his decision. That is not to say that all others are supposed to follow suit. It is their decision. But my point is, it is about time we reconsider the functions and the role of the Council of State in our governance architecture. If we sincerely believe that we cannot allow the Council of State to advise both Parliament, the judiciary, and the executive, and the decisions should be binding on them, we should scrap it. There's no point having a Council of State that would advise and the decision is not binding. So that is point one. The second point is also about the salaries or the allowances. The Constitution did not mention salaries. The Constitution mentioned allowances and privileges. And in fact, the Constitution went on to indicate that these allowances and privileges are not to be varied to the disadvantage of members of the Council of State. So if a member is appointed and these conditions are laid bare, the member has every right to, in responding to accepting to serve on the Council of State, say that I will serve on the Council of State for free. I will do that pro bono. That is within that person's right from day one. Then you swear the oath under the second schedule of the Constitution, and then you proceed. So I am of the view that it is a national conversation we should have, but insofar as we are not prepared to allow the Council of State to advise all arms of government and their advisory should be binding, if anything at all, we should scrap it. So like other members said, we have other institutions that can support government. But I don't also subscribe to the proposal that the Chief Justice Rep, the immediate past, the Inspector General of Police or the CDS should be the one to be appointed to the Council of State. Expertise is critical. So I think that on that score, we should leave it as it is. But I think it is about time as a nation, looking at what is happening in Parliament, we should rethink whether or not we need a second chamber that is neutral, that is made up of professionals, that is made up of people who will be apolitical and give us an objective advice as far as legislation is concerned. So that is my take on that.
That would be an interesting expansion, considering again, Ambassador Piali says, for a country of 33 million, why do we need so many? But that is beside the point. I want to stick with you on the redefinition of the role or review, to redefine the role or review, or to scrap. Again, looking at the functions that the Council of State performs. And I like to go to what Professor Bafo Zandia spoke about. Either they are ratifying decisions or they are advising. You've already explained the government is inbound. And what kind of review will have to be undertaken to get a government to accept that if a Council of State says A is A, that is what we are going to do? Will that not change the dynamics of what elected power means?
It will not change the dynamics. Insofar as the Council of State is to advise on national issues, and they are supposed to be apolitical. And if we are reviewing or revising their role in our governance architecture, then we should tone down on the political appointees that are appointed to the Council of State. And when you look at their appointment procedure, I will not say it is political. I would say that we have caused it by virtue of the provisions of the Constitution. So I want to believe that yes, we have the elected power given to people to manage this country, but we also needed a Council of State. For instance, if you look at our traditional chieftaincy system, and we have the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders takes decision, and they advise the chiefs, and they take it. So I think that it will not really undermine the power of elective office as far as our governance architecture is concerned. If we think we cannot live with a Council of State whose advice on national basis will be bound on the powers that be, then we should scrap it. But again, in looking at it from that angle, let us also be mindful of the composition so that we will be able to have people or persons who are truly and practically apolitical.
Now, from the financial management perspective, quite a few people I've read this week seem to think the Council of State is too expensive to keep.
Well, you see, from where I sit, it will depend on the cost-benefit analysis they've done. If we think the Council of State is too expensive to keep, one, we have to look at the Constitution. Because we have a Constitution that has put the Council of State under Article 71. So then the recommendations of the Article 71 committee cover the Council of State as well. But there are also equally very expensive institutions in this country. You need to look at the salaries and emoluments of certain chief executives in this country. They earn twice, 3, 4 times what the president earns. I think it is about time as a country we look at performance management system within the public sector. And in the course of the week, I heard a government association indicating that some public officers are paid higher than their output. And I want to agree with him. Because if you don't do an input-output analysis, you may think that a particular institution is expensive. But please try other institutions. And you would realize that as a country, we need a comprehensive public sector reforms that ensures that the Republic of Ghana gets value for money for paying certain individuals, certain institutions for their services. That we have not done that. And I think as a country, it's about time we do that because there are a lot of waste in the system. I see a lot of public officers and institutions not giving the Republic of money, value for money, but they are the first to go out there to complain about salaries and conditions of service. So I do not have the basis to say that they are overly expensive. And from where I sit, I think there are even other institutions and individuals whose cost to the nation are more expensive than that of the Council of State.
Where will this, change emanate from, or this redefinition emanates from? The executive, parliament, the general public?
I think we just have to rewrite our constitution.
That's a conversation that no government seems willing to have.
No, but I think government should be interested because this constitution is just a transitional constitution to help and stabilize. Now, if we have stabilized and we want to develop, we need a development constitution. Because if we are able to tackle all these and others, how can you have a constitution that prevents some people from paying taxes? How can you have a constitution that entrenches a whole section or a whole chapter and others are not entrenched? How can you have a constitution? The constitution is really not a development constitution. It is a stability constitution, and it helped us to move from a military dictatorship government to a constitutionally elected government We have practiced this for some time. I think it's about time we have a national conversation that as a country, we need a development constitution. Look at NDPC. That's one of your panelists mentioned. NDPC is an important institution in the life of the Republic of Ghana if you want to see the development. But NDPC is, because it is located within the office of the president, at times people always associate it with politics. At what point in time can we give value to NDPC? At what point in time can we ensure that as a country, everything we do it on an apolitical basis? The politics in this country is just too much. If we are able to tone down with politics and we are able to drive our development agenda, Ghana will be a good place to go. And the starting point is rewrite the constitution and make it a development constitution, and government must be interested in this agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Odro-Sine, for those sound thoughts that you have shared. Let me come into Emolument. Emolument, I'll begin from the articles, the conversation on determination of certain emoluments, because you've been to court on this matter. I think in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, Emolument ended up at the Supreme Court, where he commenced an action seeking clarification on some of the benefits enjoyed by Article 71 office holders, as well as other public servants in that category. And I think in your writ, what you wanted was clarification on presidential staffers who benefit from salaries, allowances, and privileges, and almost like Article 71 office holders to be stripped of such gratuities, claiming it was inconsistent with Article 71 and was therefore unconstitutional. We will get to that, but just looking at Article 71 and what it says on determination of certain emoluments, says that the salaries and allowances payable and the facilities and privileges available to the Speaker and Deputy Speaker and members of Parliament, the Chief Justice and other justices of the Supreme Court of the Judicature, the Auditor General, the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of the Electoral Commission, the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice and his deputies, and the District Assembly's Common Fund Administrator, the Chairman, Vice Chairman, and other members of a National Council for Higher Education, howsoever described, the Public Services Commission, the National Media Commission, the Lands Commission, and the National Commission for Civic Education, being expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund, shall be determined by the President on the recommendations of a committee of not more than 5 persons appointed by the President, acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State. The salaries and allowances payable and the facilities available to the President, the Vice President, the Chairman, and other members of the Council of State, Ministers of State and Deputy Ministers, being expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund, shall be determined by Parliament on the recommendations of the committee referred to in Clause 1 of this article. For the purpose of this article, and except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, salaries includes allowances, facilities and privileges, and retiring benefits or awards. So, this whole act has also brought conversation about Article 71 office holders. It's a conversation that seems to go and come. Emolument.
Yes.
You want it gone, or you want it clarified? Which is which?
I think that when the issue came up, we all wanted it gone, and within the economic context of this country, we felt that it was discriminatory because generally workers in this country are not allowed to take lump sums home when they go on retirement. So for Article 71 to list certain people and allow them to take huge sums of money home even after short service, was quite discriminatory. Upon further looking at the issue, you see that the problem actually is more about the parliamentarians and also certain people who are not listed under Article 71 who are now enjoying Article 71 benefits.
Also?
Yes. So you have the district assemblies, the local government acts, for example, saying that the retirement benefits of district chief executives should be linked to Article 71. So now the committee appointed under Article 71 determines the salaries and the emoluments and retirement benefits of district chief executives. Also, the presidential staffers, they are not mentioned anywhere in Article 71. Yet, when you look at the Presidential Office Act, they are also enjoying ex-gratia, which should not be. So the argument is that these payments are ultra various Article 71 and therefore unconstitutional. Now, when you come to the parliamentarians, apart from being named in Article 71, the specific issue of their retirement benefit is dealt with by Article 114 of the Constitution. So when you look at Article 114 of the Constitution, it tells you when a parliamentarian should take the retirement benefit. What we see now is that a parliamentarian who goes to Parliament for 4 years and continues for another 10, making it 8, making it 12, now continuously takes ex-gratia from the state, when the condition in Article 114 is that you take your retirement benefit when you are dead or you cease to become a member of Parliament. First of all, you must serve not less than 4 years. So you can be in Parliament for 3 years and you pass away or you resign or you leave Parliament, you are not entitled to ex-gratia. But where you spend 4 years, then it means that you only get your ex-gratia when you die or when you cease to become a member of Parliament. What we see now is every 4 years, because they go for re-election, they truncate the period of service in Parliament and divides it into 4 years and then takes ex-gratia every 4 years. That is not the intent of the Constitution, and that is the main argument that we have presented to the court. After 5 years, we just received a hearing notice that the court will call the matter. So I don't know what we are going to do, but it's due for judgment. So we'll see what the court decides on that.
But linking that to this whole conversation on the Council of State, where does this fall for you?
Well, I think that Toby Afede's gesture of returning the ex-gratia paid to him is part of this whole national discourse on the appropriateness. I won't say the legality, because if you want to talk about the legality, it's provided for by Article 71. But the appropriateness of paying huge sums of money, 300,000 Ghana cedi, to somebody who has just spent 4 years in office. And apart from that, this payment is not linked to any contributory scheme. Anybody who earns pension, the chief justices, the members of the electoral commission, every worker in Ghana has to contribute to the Social Security and National Insurance Trust for the scheme to grow, for you now to be able to collect your pension. But we have these people who serve for only 4 years, not contributing to the scheme because they are listed in Article 71. When you look at the Pension Act, it provides clearly in Section 30 and 31 that those who are not listed in or covered by the Pension Act are not supposed to contribute. Therefore, Article 71 members are excluded under Section 30 and 31. They are excluded from contributing to the scheme. So if you are excluded from contributing to the scheme, you are not, under normal circumstances, to be taking huge sums of money from the state, because you are burdening the finances, the consolidated fund. How do we replenish the consolidated fund for you to always be collecting those sums? So one reform that we want to see is that parliamentarians and these ministers and Council of State members should have a contributory scheme on their own. They must contribute their part of their salaries to that particular scheme that will be established. So that at the end of the day, a formula will be put in place and their pensions will be calculated. Honorable here, yes, Ambassador here was clear about that. It's important that we have a contributory scheme for these people under Article 71 so that they contribute to the pension that is going to be paid back to them. There is no way that, people are allowed to enjoy pension without contribution. And I'm not saying this out of context or in a vacuum, because in the UK, for example, parliamentarians, whether they spend 5 years or 4 in the House of Commons, contribute to a specific pension scheme, you know, and it's the Parliamentary Contributory Pension Fund, which they have. So our parliamentarians can also have this type of fund where they contribute, and then when they retire or leave,
it's an interesting proposition. Dr. Dawson, let me bring you back in. It's just been brought to my attention you've worked on an emoluments committee before. Is that correct? Dr. Dawson? Dr. Dawson?
Hello?
Yes, I was saying it's just been brought to my attention you've served on an emoluments committee previously.
Yes, I have.
Aha. So then I have questions for you. How do you calculate these numbers?
How do we calculate
some of these salaries and allowances that we see?
Well, I'm not mandated to speak for the Article 71 committee because it has a chairman. But what I know is that there are always notches that are used, and these are benchmarked with existing public sector conditions. So there is a baseline, and you work from the baseline upwards. The issues of ability to pay is also taken into consideration, and what goes into the performance of one function or the other, including the risk involved and the intensity of the functions, also counts. So those are the things that I can say. But as at now, I'm not close with the authority and power to speak for the committee, but the committee had a chairperson. So maybe when you speak with the chairperson can give you input into it.
All right, that's fair. I'll take that. Franklin, Article 71. You've heard Eleclaim's explanation. Perhaps it's time to get these ones also contributing.
Well, yes, and beyond even the conversation about contributing to the pension scheme, I think we also need to have a rational conversation as to whether the amounts we are paying are reflective of the output, as Ambassador PLA has said. I think the government statistician provoked a debate about productivity.
A lot of people are not happy with what he said.
I was even surprised people are not happy. I thought people
all the
were
unions
welcome.
are after his head.
Well, I think, again, he explained that I'm sure it was miscommunication. But essentially what he sought to say was that, look, within the public sector, we've always asked ourselves whether what they receive is reflective of the productivity, really. It could be either up or down, really. So I was surprised that people were angry. I think he made a point about certain averages, and he thinks that given the level, the nature of our economy, and what people are receiving, and what they are giving in return, he thought it was problematic, and we needed to have that rational conversation. Once we have that conversation dispassionately, I'm sure people would see why they will earn a bit better, more than someone else who they probably think may have the same degree, but they are doing much more than the other person. You remember the last time I was here, I told you about this whole notion of a single spine, where again, it's the greatest sin against the laws of demand and supply. To the extent that if you have a degree in, let's say, in humanities in this part of our world, and you have a degree in accounting, and you do all the hard, back-breaking number crunching and all of that, I don't expect to be paid the same amount as you'll be paid. If all I do is to just dig holes at the Department of Parks and Gardens, right? But the current system we have now suggests that once I have a degree and it's called a degree, no matter what discipline, we should be put on the same pedestal. And I think that is wrong. So we got all these things wrong from the moment we impose on ourselves this single spine thing called salary, what's it called, universal salary system. But I think the conversation must be had. The productive elements of our economy must be known, and their contributions surely rewarded. So I don't think the statistician was wrong at all. And again, even Article 71 holders, we should be asking ourselves, in fact, we should have a charter that if you came into office
and you contributed a certain percentage to the bottom line of the country, or to your department, or to your office, or whatnot, then on that basis you are paid. But just because I'm appointed a minister, a deputy minister, and I shouldn't be receiving salary because I've just been appointed, I should ask myself, how did I move the units where I work from point A to point B? That will be the basis for determining whether I should receive a salary or not. I mean, if we want to really develop, we must copy the habits of highly effective countries, right? And in those countries, yes, there's a certain sense that an average American is more productive than the average Ghanaian because of the investments they've made into each person in terms of education and what have you. If that person comes to work here, he's expected to receive salaries at par with whatever his knowledge that is acquired and how the output of that knowledge, how it's benefiting society. It should be the same thing here as well. So you can't just be in a position and expect to be paid. It doesn't work that way. That's the way it works in the private sector. I mean, I'm sure City FM uses the same discipline here, right? The same economic discipline. I don't see why in the public sector it should be free for all. It can't be. So that conversation must be extended to Article 71 holders as well. What have you contributed? If you came into office and you promised to grow the GDP of a country from 2, 3, 4, 5% to 8%, 9%, and you don't achieve that, you shouldn't actually be getting a raise. You probably should even be getting a demotion.
People work on their emoluments.
Exactly, they should be minded by that. You see, it shouldn't just be because of inflationary trends that somehow some of the decisions are taken. Okay, you get this because we think now the nature of the economy will peg the salary scheme at this X amount because times are hard, or it should be pro rata as the economy develops, or maybe as inflationary trends suggest. I think I've heard that argument as part of the reasons why they set up this. I mean, they peg the prices of what's the salary scales and all of that. I think it's totally wrong. We should rather reinvent this whole scheme of rewarding workers, whether be it in the public or the private sector. It has to be based on a level of productivity, and it's a charter that the government must have, the state must have with the people of the country. That we say, yes, in fact, we should. I wish NDPC could actually have the mandate to legislate it as part of the manifestos that parties put up. That I think that if I come into office, I want to move the country from here to here. Each unit moved from here to here. Then we can begin to say, okay, you've earned it. You reward ourselves. All this sloganeering going on, I've done this, the economy was this, I did this up to this point. It's not reflective in the remuneration structures that the Article 71 holders are actually enjoying. It's as if the position exists to be filled, and because it's filled, the payments due must also be given. It doesn't work that way. You know, I think the Singaporeans have figured out that they need to pay their public sector workers effectively well, and they pay because they know the value they are getting in return. But some of the salaries that public sector people are earning are not reflective of the amount of work that they're actually doing. So the statistician was spot on. I don't think the ordinary civil servants should be angry. I think he was making a general point about productivity. So we should allow that conversation to be had. Look, there was a certain time when, I think during Setepa's time, we decided that there are certain government agencies that can actually stand on their own, given the sort of work they do. And so a committee was formed. I remember I was part of that committee to wean certain subvented agencies off the payroll. And that exercise was a useful exercise, because then when we went into institutions and they made presentations to us based on the numbers, the projections, and we asked them, project 5 years from now how your institution is going to look like in terms of revenue, the manpower you need, the skill sets you need, the investments you need. Some of the institutions were very, 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 very effective. And they did say, and they showed us numbers that they can actually stand on their own. The only thing is that because they are subvented agencies and the mother agencies, what it meant was that there must be an understanding that they give some money back to the state, and that arrangement could be made. So if at that time that conversation was had, that certain agencies, public agencies, based on their own permutations, financial analysis, could stand on their own, it tells you that when we push the levers a little notch higher, we could actually exact the accountability we need in terms of productivity, the productivity we need, and accountable, should I call it, labor.
Interesting. So I would take final points on this from Ambassador Sampiali. Let me just take a couple of messages on this. Oh, okay. All right. This one says, good morning, Godfrey. I don't see the relevance of the Council of State. I always see the President giving them advice rather than they advising him. Oh, really? This is cool from La Paz. Zalix Dwayne in London says, I comment to Guapele for this approach. God bless him. A couple more. This is interesting. So, this one is from an academic at the University of Ghana who says, there are problems with Article 71 in the Constitution. For example, a former Chief Justice who has retired on his or her salary and is not on the Council of State and being paid salary and ex-gratia after receiving ex-gratia at retirement is erroneous, which is an interesting point. So let me just read this again. He says, a former Chief Justice, for instance, who has retired on his or her salary and is not on the Council of State, the person is also an ex-official member, and is being paid salary and ex-gratia after receiving ex-gratia at retirement is erroneous. You can wrap your head around that. It says we need to discuss salaries and benefits of all public sector workers devoid of emotions, but based on universal principles, concepts, and well-tested methodology. Salaries of different public sector workers determined differently create inequity and discrimination. These are his thoughts on the matter. So I will take a quick break, and then Ambassador Sampiali will wrap up. Electrum says he has a point or two to make as well. The big issue, right back.
Tell them I'm not in, eh? Tell them.
When you evade taxes, you put yourself at risk of prosecution. Do the right thing. Pay your duties and taxes online, through the bank, or from your phone on time. And let's build a great nation.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Welcome back to the big issue, and you can also share your messages as you've heard me read others. 0549986996, 0550585832, 0549986996, and 0550585832. Those are WhatsApp lines. Ambassador, you've heard the conversation on Article 71. Very different opinions on it.
Oh, I've already said that the existence of the Council of State is challenged. Because of empirical evidence and its sustainability. You understand? I said earlier on that if we had our own money and we're spending that lavishly, I don't have a problem. But where every year or at the beginning of every year we have to borrow money, that is where I have a problem. Again, if you disaggregate what goes into our salaries and emoluments, then you find out that that takes a large chunk of what we are paying for borrowing money to pay. So I am very convinced that the Council of State, in the present form, structure, and mandate, is irrelevant. Right. Now, as to Article 71, I have been trying to reconcile that with the directive principle of state policy. Because the directive principle of state policy talks about equality. You understand? Equality. So anything that is done that is inconsistent with that principle is, for me, a problem. Now, why are we seeking to create different categories of Ghanaians? Why? You wake up in the morning, you put on your clothes, come from Sefi something or Takrady somewhere as a chief, come for a meeting, so, and then you are Article 71. You haven't contributed anything. What about, Master, the cocoa farmer? Last time I saw a program, the cocoa farmer was begging that Abai, for chocolate in be, and Miloni be Branayansu, Yento be Indi. Do you see what I'm saying? The man who's at the farm producing the cocoa is begging that they should bring the chocolate for him to also buy and eat. Because here we don't even taste cocoa. What does that man earn? What does that man earn? And then apart from the salary and allowances and ex-gratia, you are giving free medical attention, dental attention. And even after you have left office, that is a class system. That is inconsistent with the equality the Constitution sought to build. I was a member of the Consultative Assembly. I don't think that we settled that matter, but I am convinced beyond all reasonable doubt that the existence of the Council of State and what they are being paid is relevant to our economic situation. You understand? Because, like I said earlier on, the Constitution itself also provides various architecture for advising the president. If you talk about the police council, they advise the president about what? Police. The Armed Forces Council. We have the National Security. We have institutions that directly or who know better than what the Council of State members will know about what they should advise the president on. Mere gratuitous committees, forming committees to look at the issue which the president may accept or may not accept, does not warrant the amount of money we pay. I have quite seriously agree with Franklin that certain institutions of state are just burdensome on the taxpayer. If you take my MPRA, it's capable of paying for itself. And if they have not taken themselves off the government payroll, they should do that. Look at Kolebu, Minister of Health Kolebu. The Ministry of Health has no reason to subvent on the Ghana government. No reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. Because we pay National Health Insurance Scheme, it's a national health insurance. We should be cumulatively accumulating revenue for them. Now, if you go to India and some other places, India as I know, frankly no, their health service is a tourism attraction. They call it medical tourism.
Yes.
And earning billions of dollars for the Indian economy. In Kolebu, we have got the best of best doctors here. Simply equipping Kolebu, refurbishing Kolebu, and say that Kolebu has the name, it has got a brand. Why are we not marketing the brand to get revenue? Are you following what I'm saying? The whole of West Africa, I don't think there's a hospital that has the capacity of Kolebu. Yet Kolebu cannot be painted because they don't have money. And subventing at the Ghana government. There are certain institutions, if we are critical to take them off the government payroll, they will do better. Look at Jimpa. You know Jimpa?
Yeah.
It used to be some bogus.
It's grown.
Yes. Look at Jimpa on its own. They are making money for itself. Why should the University of Ghana subvent on the Ghana government? Jimpa It's on its own, but it is not admitting people on cut route. Listen, at least then the Minister of Education can act as a regulator on the fees. You understand? If you give this out, not to private people, but on self-governance, the institutions governing themselves, then they will look at the fact that, hey, the month is coming. I have to pay the lecturers and the professors. We have to look for innovative ways of generating money. Are you following what I'm saying? Why should Legon subvent on Ghana government? And worst of all, KNUST? Why should KNUST subvent on government? When they can simply develop systems and other things for sale. I think that this country is carrying too much burden.
Okay.
But which it cannot. Go to ministry. Go to a typical ministry and ask them, for the past 10, 15, whatever years, have you been given any money for investment? They will say no. All we have received is salaries and emoluments. There are 3 items, not so 3 items, they have received just 2. Now, if we have not given them money for productive activities, all they go there is to go and sit there. Yeah, because at the end of the month, you pay them. Not so. And what is their productivity? What did they add? Pushing people from one debt to the other. What did they add? There are countries that do not have 100 of the tourism infrastructure that we have, facilities that we have. Go to the Gambia. What they have? They are quite sandy. But they are raking in millions of dollars from tourism. You sit here, you have got a brand like Kwame Nkrumah. Go anywhere, mention Kwame Nkrumah's name, they will say, oh, Ghana. You have this, whatever, the Muslim there. It's now cracked and collapsing, which ought to be a major tourist attraction. We have left there. So I believe that we have to pause as a country. Stop this MPP, NDC things. We have to stop. You understand? Get NDPC to develop a long-term plan like Singapore did. Within 5 years, this is what you want to achieve. And you, the politician who want to lead this country, bring us a program that would best execute that policy that we have set ourselves. And the Ghanaians will have the chance to evaluate your policy and my policy towards this cap. Okay. You see what I'm talking about? But where we are, every 4 years, projects are truncated. Because I don't want to continue somebody's project for me to be said that I'm continuing somebody's program.
Yeah.
You know, in the end, who is suffering?
Points well made, Ambassador Sampi Ali. You said you wanted a quick take on this, and then I can wrap up this topic.
Well, I want to differ on the issue of the relevance of the Council of State.
Okay.
Yes. You know, when you look at the Constitution, I think, and also the rationale behind the creation, is purely to serve the executive. And, you know, matters concerning the executive, usually, apart from contravening the law, are subjected to a political question, you know, and electoral, you know, decisions. So we can't expect the Council of State to be so accountable like other institutions of state, like Parliament and then the judiciary. Their advice to the executive, the Parliament should, and the President should be confidential, and the President should feel comfortable in listening to them. We are assuming that always, you know, the President does not always take the advice because it is in the Constitution that the advice is not binding. No. I mean, if you spend time in the executive, you will know that even though it's the executive, they don't usually operate as a monolithic body. You know, there are people who always exercise their conscience, and I believe that with the Council of State and its composition, those who are appointed onto the Council of State have reached, you know, stages in their life where actually the love for the country will be more than their personal interest, and that is the main reason why they are put there, to counsel the President. We must separate the issue of the quality of their work from the expense. what it's costing us to put them there. And I feel that if we think that the ex-gratia and the benefits they are taking home is too much, yeah, we should reduce it. I agree. But as to its usefulness to the executive, I believe that they are relevant. You know, Toby Afede is not the only person who has raised an issue about the ex-gratia. The TUC in 2021 called for its abolition.
Yeah.
Honorable Osei Chairman Zabunzu himself, you know, has on more than one occasion said that the issue of ex-gratia should be looked at. I believe that President Akufo-Addo himself, in one of his State of the Nation's address, also raised the issue. So the issue is the political will. It looks like everybody thinks that this is an issue that must be dealt with, but we are all dancing around it. So I am really, really hopeful that the Supreme Court will take up this national issue since it is before them. And actually, 5. Yeah, it was 5 in 2017. You know, so it is clear that the generality of the population, be it the ordinary people, the masses, or even people in positions of power, feel a little bit uncomfortable with this. And Article 71 really must be looked at, especially the illegalities that have crept into it. You know, the parliamentarians, the district executives, and also the presidential staffers who are all benefiting, even though they are not listed under the article.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, the workers' bonus that they were taking annually was scrapped.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. So I'm sure you out there also have your thoughts. Keep sending them in. I will get to more messages in the course of the program, but we'll now move on to discuss the economy as it is. But Dr. Drosai.
Yes, sir, I'm on the line.
Yes, go ahead. I will give you final words as well on this topic and then wrap it up.
All right, thank you very much. I think that it's about time we review our constitution, like I said, but I also firmly believe that the Constitution Review Commission recommended the establishment of an independent emolument committee that would perform the functions of determining public sector salaries, including that of Article 71. So we then have one committee or commission that looks at the emolument of public sector workers as well as that of Article 71 office holders, so that there will be that reconciliation. But I still want to add my voice that we should be able to get value for money by doing an input-output analysis and ensure that people work for what they are paid for. At the moment, I want to agree with the government statistician and the other panelists that we are not getting value for money at all by the money we pay public sector workers. I also stand by the fact that we should review the operational procedures and the status of the Council of State in our governance architecture. If we want to maintain it, then we should make their advisory binding, not only the president, but also Parliament and the judiciary. In that case, they can act on an apolitical basis. We should also look at the composition, and if we want them to act on national issues, we can proceed along those lines. It is a national conversation we need to have, and we need to take a decision on it now, so we will not come back to this table and be discussing it in the next 5 years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eric Odrosai, for those words. I'll take a quick break. When we return, inflation is up.
Welcome to the very first City Business Festival Forum for 2022.
The City Business Festival 2022 is here. The entire month of June has been dedicated to business on City TV and 97.3 City FM. The City Business Festival will give entrepreneurs, SMEs, and individuals the needed insights and knowledge to advance their businesses. Join the weekly business forums every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. live on City TV for discussions on various thematic areas each week, beginning with Week 1, Reimagining the Digital Economy. Week 2, Resetting Your SME after COVID-19. Week 3, The Ghana Opportunity. Week 4, Consumer Market. Week 5, Agribusiness. Also, tune in every weekday morning for the City Business Festival on-air series on the City Breakfast Show on 97.3 City FM to acquire the information you need to kickstart, grow, improve, strengthen, and expand your business. There will be a lesson for every business with the City Business Festival this June, only on City TV, 97.3 City FM, and on CNR Digital. The City Business Festival, proudly sponsored by Absa Bank and supported by MTN Momo, MTN Business, IT Consortium, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and Gersol.
Celebrate Israel Day, 74 years of Israeli independence here in Accra, Ghana at the Kempinski Hotel.
Ghana was the first African country to establish relations with the State of Israel.
In this connection, Ghana welcomes the normalization of relations between Israel and United Arab Emirates, UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco through the signing of the Abraham Accords.
If you trace the history of Israelis, any nation that's connected to Israel is blessed.
Welcome back to the big issue and now to the matter of inflation, because this week the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobdeni, who I must admit is a breath of fresh air in my estimation, deals with numbers and just delivers the numbers as they are. Well, that is how I see it anyway, and quite open to discussing the numbers as he sees them. A bit unusual in my experience and dealings with previous government statisticians. So I commend him for that. May he keep doing that. Is predicting a continuous trend of an increase in the rate of inflation for the next few months. Now he released recent data from the Ghana Statistical Service, which indicates that further hikes in transport fares and food prices have pushed the rate of inflation for the month of May to 27%. He expects that the country might continue to see an upward trend in inflation. So we'll hear from him. Now, the government, through its Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. John Kuma, they are saying that they are introducing more measures to address the issues of rising inflation. So we'll hear from the government statistician, and then we'll hear from Dr. John Kuma on what the government is trying to do to stem this inflation tide. And then we come in, we'll hear from Dr. Edu Susakodie from the University of Ghana Economics Department. Franklin is still here, and Ambassador Sampial is also with us. And then Professor Lord Mensah will also join us from the University of Ghana Business School. Volume.
Recorded rates of inflation of 30.1% and 25.7%. And from a domestic and imported rates of inflation, respectively, we recorded 27.3% and 28.2%, with imported inflation sustaining its dominance over domestic food inflation. From a regional perspective, Eastern region recorded the highest overall rate inflation of 31.2%, and Upper East recorded the least inflation of 19.5%. On a month-on-month basis, rates of inflation for the month of May 2022 stood at 4.1%, decreasing by 1.0 percentage points relative to the rate recorded for April 2022. On a month-on-month basis, food inflation and non-food inflation respectively stood at 4.0 and 4.1%.
Difficult time looking at the combination of different things like food prices going up, fuel prices going up, and then of course these fiscal issues also, inflation going up. These are a combination of factors that are causing some difficulties in the economy. The good news is that these are temporary difficulties and hurdles that government will cross very soon. It is part of the symptoms of recovery from COVID. The government actually is responding in several fronts. The Bank of Ghana have announced a number of monetary policies. Ministry of Finance, we've also announced a number of fiscal measures. We'll continue to do so. In fact, the mid-year budget is coming. We are going to take several initiatives to address some of these imported inflation concerns in our country, and also how we can bring back the target. In fact, this year, our inflation target was 8% plus or minus 2. So where we are is way overboard, and we are not happy with it. But we strongly believe that we will quickly come back within the target.
So you heard the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kwabena, and Dr. John Kuma. So the big bad animal, inflation, and its apostle is here. Dr. Susan here, economics lecturer at University of Ghana Economics Department. How bad is it? When everybody says, okay, 27%, layman's language, is it bad?
It's bad, given the fact that...
Why is it bad?
We have the highest inflation in West Africa. I've asked my TA to compare that of Africa and the whole world for me to see where Ghana stands. Before COVID, Ghana had the 4th highest inflation in West Africa. So countries like Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Nigeria were worse than Ghana. And we have all gone through COVID and the war, and Ghana has the worst inflation in West Africa. In layman's language, inflation rate of 27.6% means that if you bought an item last year for 100 cedis, on the average you need 27.6 cedis more to buy the same item. If you flip the coin and look at the erosion in the value of your money, then we are saying that assume inflation is a silent thief, a thief that comes into your pocket to steal something from your pocket. Now, the thief is stealing 27.6% of your money. Every 100 cedis that you have in your pocket, over 1 year period, the thief has stolen 27 cedis from your pocket. This is a worrying situation. Now, we have to disaggregate inflation to understand it better. And I think before we came to here, I heard ambassadors saying that, well, some people have, a higher inflation than the other. And it's true. If you look at the regional breakdown, our Eastern region has the highest, Upper West has the highest food inflation, Upper East has the lowest food inflation, Upper West has the lowest non-food inflation. So you can see that the dynamics change if you do the micro level analysis. There are some items that are experiencing 100% inflation. So if you calculate your household inflation, the personal inflation, mine could be higher depending on the items that you consume most and depending on the weight you attach to those items. My inflation could be higher than 27.6%. Franklin's inflation could be lower than 26.6%. So depending on the items. For example, grapes is the item with the highest inflation. Grapes, 100%. Diesel, I can give you the diesel, 81%. If you are somebody that consumes grapes so much, you are feeling 100% inflation in your pocket, more or less. But pre-primary education has, I think, about 1.6%. So if you are somebody, the item that commands a greater share of your expenditure is pre-primary education, you realize that your inflation is too low in your pocket. So depending on
the items that you consume and the weight of the items on your pocket, your inflation could be different from another person's inflation. And that is why oftentimes you hear people say, well, you say inflation is 27.6%, but when I went to the market to buy tomatoes, the rate of increase in the price of tomatoes is higher than the inflation rate. And it is true, because the inflation is just the average for the nation. And if you go deep down, some items that are sold on the market will have higher inflation than the national average, whilst others will have lower inflation than the national average. Let me give you the top 15 items that drive inflation in the country. Okay. Top 15. Grapes, diesel, firewood, watermelon, petrol, maize, condo, gas, washing soap, charcoal, wheat flour, avocado pear, vegetable oil, groundnut oil, margarine. 9, yes. Okay. If I can go over again and tell you whether they are local or imported. Now, out of these 15 items that drive inflation in the country, 9 are food items. The remaining 6 are non-food items. And that is why it is not surprising to see food inflation rising faster than the non-food inflation, and also the imported inflation rising faster than the local inflation. Now, these items, grapes is imported. Grapes has 100.8% inflation, imported. Diesel, imported, 81.1% inflation. Firewood, local, 73.7%. Watermelon, local, 73.2%. Petrol, imported, 62%. Maize, local, 61.2%. Condo, 60.8% is local. Gas, imported, 60.2%. Washing soap, local, 9.9%. Charcoal, local, 57.6%. Wheat flour, food, which is local, 57.0%. Avocado pear, local, 54.4%. Vegetable oil, imported, 53.4%. Groundnut oil, local, 53.3%. And margarine, imported, 49.3%. If you are in a country and you find these simple agricultural products, watermelon, pear, grapes, look at them, condo, maize, driving inflation in your country, then the Planting for Food and Jobs program, which has run for 5 years, is questionable. There are so many questions surrounding that program. And look at the drivers, what are the contributory factors? First of all is the COVID, the COVID recovery. We cannot run away from the effect of COVID. Okay. We are still in COVID, remember. Yeah. I've seen Franklin still wearing the nose mask. We're still in COVID. Number 2 is the war. We can't run away from the effect or the impact of the war. We depend so much on Russia and Ukraine for our war, for our imports. The budget for this year, crude oil, for this year was $62 per barrel. Today we are doing over $100 per barrel. So nobody can underestimate the impact of the war and the impact of the COVID. However, Ghana has its own problems, which also added to the external problems. Like? So we have the COVID, we have the war, external, and then we have our own internal problems. Number 1 is the exchange rate. Our cedi depreciated by 19% in the first quarter of the year. The cedi depreciation alone has added 30 billion cedis to the public debt. 30 billion in the first quarter of this year. So the cedi depreciation, because again we are import dependent economy, every item that you want to import, you need to buy the foreign currency, the dollar or whatever, and your cedi will depreciate. And I give you another example. If you needed 100 cedis, if the exchange rate was 5, then you need 500 cedis for $100. If the exchange rate is now 7, you need 700 cedis instead of 500 cedis. So the importer is now going to add 200 cedis more to import the same $100 worth of items. And that importer, mind you, is interested in the profit. And that importer will increase the price of the produce. Now, the second challenge, local challenge that we have, apart from the external ones, is also the cost of production. Now, if you look at the PPI, which measures the producer price inflation, it gives you a clear understanding of the cost of production in the country. That's around 30%. The PPI is around 30%. What is it telling you? It's telling you that the inputs that are used for production, before we talk about the marketing and consumption, We are talking about the production level. So the cost of items have also increased at the production level. Cost of inputs have increased at the production level. We haven't even come to storage, transportation, distribution at the consumer level. So at the producer level, PPI is high. So you might say that, oh, because it's full, because of transportation. I say, I agree. What about the production level? So the production level price is increasing. There's no storage. You take the bus or the trotro to transport your goods, you pay higher fares. So by the time you move the good from the production point to the marketing point for the final consumer, there is multiple increase in prices. And this, I am saying again, is a worrying situation. We have to admit as a country that the inflation rate is bad. The current inflation rate is really bad. Okay. It's eating away people's investment. You go to invest and you get an interest rate of, say, 20%. If inflation is 27 and you are gaining 20%, you are recording a negative real interest rate of 7. It means the investment that you have made, our pensioners, the monies that they have put in investment, they are rather losing. They are losing. And we expect the banks to also increase the interest rate because the banks are also profit-making entities. They're not there for charitable organization or charitable things. They would increase their interest rate. Why? Because anytime the inflation rate is higher than the interest rate, the banks lose. That is a negative real interest rate. So the banks, being profit-making entities, will increase the interest rate. And that is why for a long time, when the central bank also wants to fight inflation by increasing the policy rate, we end up as a country experiencing a higher interest rate. And then the banks will make supernormal profit. Supernormal profit, not normal profit.
Which is what we're experiencing now. I've seen the numbers for the banks recently.
Yes.
All of them.
And I heard you say that on your network and one. The banks are experiencing supernormal profit. However, those in the rest sectors that produce to feed us are making losses. So the approach that we have taken as a country is wrong.
Let me ask you this, and correct, inflation has to be tackled from the central bank's perspective, right?
Both.
And the government as it is.
The monetary sector and the real sector.
Let's focus on the Bank of Ghana's strategy. What do you make of it so far?
In fairness to the bank, they are only using the readily available tools,
which is interest rate,
which is the policy rate, and of course, to affect interest rate. When inflation is a demand pull inflation, that policy becomes very effective. What is demand pull inflation? The ones we know from secondary school: more money chasing fewer goods. If we find ourselves in a situation where inflation is being driven by the fact that people have too much money in their hands, demanding the limited supply or production, then it will cause inflation, and then the policy rate will be effective, because when you increase the policy rate, it will increase the interest rate to reduce the growth of money in the economy, and that will slow down inflation. Unfortunately for us as a country, a greater part of our inflation is a supply side inflation, and therefore the approach by the central bank to fight inflation is ineffective.
Why are they not seeing this? I've heard this theory you are propounding before, but the central bank seems to disagree and seem focused on this demand side strategy.
The central bank has never disagreed. The governor himself has admitted that it's a supply side inflation.
So why this?
That's why I'm saying that in fairness to the bank, the bank is only using the tools that are available to them. The banks do not have control over fertilizer. The banks do not have control over storage facilities. The banks do not have control over the price of diesel. The banks do not have control over so many things. So it should be a comprehensive approach. Whilst the bank is doing its bid with the policy rate, the real sector and then the fiscal sector must also be doing.
Who controls that side?
I'm saying that, yes, the fiscal sector is being controlled by the Ministry of Finance. So, and I've given you another example, which is the public debt, the borrowing. If the central bank wants to control inflation, and you end up spending more than your revenue and you keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and 51% of your public debt is the external component, is in foreign currency, in somebody's currency that you don't have control over. Anytime your cedi depreciates, you will need more cedis to finance, to service your debt. And that cedi exchange rate, there's a pass-through inflation from the exchange rate, the pass-through effect of the exchange rate on inflation. So anytime that happens, you experience inflation. So that is why, though the central bank will be doing its bit by using the policy rate, but if the fiscal side does not also discipline itself, it will amount to nothing. And then the players in the real sector, agric, have already questioned the Planting for Food and Jobs program. There are so many questions surrounding the program that needs to be answered. I wish you could get in touch with the agric minister for him to explain to us. We have heard from the Minister of Finance. We have heard from the central bank governor. We want to hear from the real sectors. The players in the real sector, we want to hear from them. Mr. Minister, what has happened to the Planting for Food and Jobs? Why do you have a program that has run for 5 years, and that program is dependent on inputs that are imported from other countries? You have run a program for 5 years. However, the raw materials that you need to run the program are not locally produced. Over 90% of fertilizer we use in the country are imported. So because of the war, we're not getting fertilizer. Farmers are crying. The last thing we need in this country is food insecurity. So I think that the attention now should not be on the central bank. The attention should be shifted from the central bank to the Minister of Finance and to the Minister of Agric and to the Minister of Trade, those in the real sector. They should be answering those questions.
But what about those who say economies like Ghana, Nigeria, the real sector, as you mentioned, has very weak linkages with the formal, financial sector. So economic decision making does not really change with these things.
There are obviously weaknesses in the structure of every economy, of course, in the African economies. The linkage is somehow a bit weak. And therefore, you not have that strong. That is why sometimes there's this weak link between reducing the policy rate and you expect the interest rate to also go down. There are so many decisions that must be made. And the simple answer to your question is that we can take Ivory Coast as a case study. It is a research that I'm working on. Ivory Coast for some time now seems to be doing very well with their economy. Whatever they are doing there, we have to go and learn. Yes, and then Ivorians are not different from Ghanaians. I understand by anthropologists that they are all Akans. We have some Akans. Yes, I am Akan. So if I go there meeting my brothers and my sisters there, what are they doing right that we are doing wrong? Ivory Coast has the highest inflation, that's 5%. The highest inflation in many years, and that's 5%. Before COVID, they were doing better. They were doing like 2% or so. Now they are doing 5%. Cocoa production has increased. So many things going on wrong, right for them. Now, I have listened to conversations about, I have even said on your platform that the President of the Republic, this administration, they were swift in their response to COVID.
The COVID, yes.
I have always admitted that, and I have not shied away from that. I did a research whilst I was away to compare government's response to the COVID. Ghana did far better than so many countries like Tunisia, Rwanda, Ethiopia, but Ivory Coast did better than us. So the argument that we sacrifice economics to control the virus may not be that entirely true when we compare ourselves with Ivorians. Because, one, they did better in terms of their strategy to combat the virus, and two, their economic situations are also better than us. So what did they sacrifice? It means that they didn't sacrifice anything. So you look at the stringency index, theirs is higher than us. Look at vaccination per 100 population, theirs is higher than us. The three indicators that you use to measure the government's response to COVID, they did better than us. Ivory Coast is doing something good. Our own neighbors, Nigeria had their inflation was worse than us before COVID in December 2019.
Did they hike policy rates recently? Did they not?
Yes, to respond to inflation, of course, that has been our approach, increase the policy rate, whether it's effective or not. I think I heard a friend saying that, why can't the central bank just leave the policy rate alone? Because if there's inflation and it's a supply side, why are you fighting it? With a policy rate, which is ineffective, and you end up increasing the interest rate to increase the profit of the banks and at the expense of industry players, the manufacturers.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned the banks, and then I'll come to Franklin and Ambassador, and then I'll come back to you. On the banks, and we raised the matter of they benefiting. The criticism has also come that if you look at their numbers, they are not lending to the private sector with all the money. They seem to be rather vested in government bonds as a safe refuge for their money during this time so that they can reap some money. What is happening there?
It is a demand and supply thing. The banks are there to do banking business, to lend loans to us, to expand our economy, to create jobs and to grow and develop the country. That is the role of the banks. They're supposed to release funds. They're supposed to lubricate the economy with the funds, with the credit and liquidity. That's the role of the bank.
So this money that they are making, we should have been enjoying the benefits.
Yes, I'm coming. So that is their role. That's how they're supposed to do. Give us the money to expand our businesses and create jobs. But they are also not there as NGOs or whatever. They are there to make profit. How many local banks do we have? I don't know. I haven't counted. I think Franklin can have like 5 or so. And then the remaining ones are foreign banks. Do you think that somebody will move from his country, come and set up a bank in your country, and you don't want the person to make profit? Do you think he is just coming here to bless you with his money? He's coming here to make profit. So the profit-making, adventure of those banks is what is defining their decisions to lend to government and not to individuals. And so the government would rather have to create the atmosphere, the enabling environment, as you always say, so that it will be a disincentive for the banks to lend to government, but it will be incentive for them to lend to individuals. How? If the treasury bill rate is so low, around 5%, 6%, 7%, the banks will not find it lucrative to lend to the government. So the interest rates, the government bonds rates, the treasury bill rates, and all that, they are making it more profitable for the banks to lend to government other than the individuals. But we need it. The individuals, there are about 10 million Ghanaian workers in the country. 10 million. Only about 1 million are employed in the government sector. The remaining 9 million are in the private sector. Yet, the private sector that needs the funds to expand their businesses, to create jobs, to grow the economy, they're not getting the funds. And so, something is definitely wrong with our economic, programs and policies and all that. There's something wrong somewhere. And I want to submit that we have to approach this problem as a Ghana problem. I don't like this politicization of every position, and that's why we are all happy about the position of the government statistician, even though, of course, he was appointed by the government, but his posture to admit that there's a problem. The central bank governor has also admitted that there's a problem. And I think that all government officials, including the president, must admit that there's a problem, and we must deal with it. This war, even if it ends today, is going to take Ukraine about more than 5 years to recover. If you continue to depend on them for fertilizer and wheat and all that, it means that for the next 5 years, they're not going to eat.
I get the point you're making. Hold on for me. Franklin, I'm sure you also listened to the government statistician based on the kind of work you do, where we've seen, per the data, increase in transport fares and surging food prices. That's what pushed the rate of inflation in May, which was against the 23%. So if you look at the disaggregation, we had transport, then we had household equipment and maintenance, housing and water, electricity and gas, then food and non-alcoholic beverages topping the list. What did you make of this revelation on the rate of inflation, which is at a record high, and the strategy that is currently being used?
I mean, I think the side commentary to the inflation numbers are actually more important to me than the revelation of the current rate of inflation. And I say side commentary because the government statistician is a thorough academic and is an activist as well in terms of the role he's performing. In the course of explanation, he did say at some point that, look, if we were really, really looking at the measuring these things properly, the current rate of inflation may actually be higher. No,
also says for employment, I think.
Exactly. Dr. Sarkodie makes the point about probably emphasizing the importance of the producer price inflation more than even the CPI, because it is that one which actually determines the what's it called, the real productive elements of the economy. Of course, these ones are consumption related. So what it means is that what feeds into the producer price inflation, eventually, if you do the top-ups in terms of the consumption, then exactly gives you the CPI, which is the inflation. If we don't have a hold on affecting the producer price inflation, the cost of doing business in this country, if we do not fix that, as Dr. Sarkodie has mentioned, and if we do not have a lever on some of the ingredients in our productive elements, I mean the industrial sector, even like agriculture, something like fertilizer, I am very sure that we are not going to get out of these doldrums even when the war ends in Ukraine. And you know,
you've heard
one
of
of the
this
things,
this move push towards improving the organic fertilizer space.
Beyond organic,
investment is being thrown at it.
beyond organic, I've had a number of interventions. Some people who were interested in building fertilizer plants at some point, well, some of us were involved in some initial conversations. But it's been so long, it doesn't take, you don't see progress as much as you want to see because of the invisible hands of government and politicians. So I believe that once we invest in fertilizer plants, and these things can be done. I mean, we have Morocco to learn from, right? You know, OCP is the biggest, one of the biggest fertilizer companies on the continent, actually in the world, and we can learn from them as to what to do. The point I'm making is that we know what to fix, we know how to do it, but unfortunately, there's this lethargy when it comes to taking action. Of the two investors I know who are interested in building fertilizer plants, I know some of them were shortchanged in terms of action, in terms of certain, you know how politicians behave in this part of our world. So we are shooting ourselves in the foot. So we can fix some of these domestic challenges by looking at the way government itself attends to its own programs. Of course, the Planting for Food and Jobs. If you listen to the Greek minister, by the way, Doc, he blames the finance ministry for not releasing money, right, in order to get fertilizer out of the country. Of course, there are also unintended consequences of. I mean, the way the fertilizer is distributed itself has also got a lot of challenges. But I think the basic factor of ensuring that we produce some of these inputs in the country, it's about time we really took had a good focus on them so that we can reduce the effect of imported inflation. Otherwise, this skyrocketing price will actually go high. I submit that I think the inflation rate is actually around 40%. I mean, the real thing. I don't think, because most of the things you keep buying, you see the changes almost instantaneously. And I cringe that if the commentary is that things will get worse before they stabilize, then we are in for the long haul. What is also worrying is that, you know, Dr. Sarkodie talks about having a conversation which is apolitical, and I totally yield to that. Look, I don't know where he stands on going to the IMF right now, but I can tell you that the government credibility in managing the fiscal aspect of this country, unfortunately, is in tatters. I don't think most investors are quite worried. There's a real fear that we'll even default on our debt. I don't know how that's going to happen anytime soon. The latest I saw from the Bank of America is some of the analysis they did on Africa, and specifically on Ghana, they are quite worried, and that they are saying that unless government is able to complete its syndicated loans in record time at a much better rate, which you are not likely to get, because currently rates are almost at 20%, right? If you are borrowing, having risen in 12 months from 8 to 9%, it makes it difficult for government to have that fiscal space to be able to do the things it wants to do. And they say either they are able to successfully syndicate the loans, get the loans, or on the back of it, of course, they are trying to use certain instruments like collateralizing some of our, either the gold reserves or the oil, or maybe some of the taxes that they've introduced lately. If they are not successful with that, then the likely option is to go to the IMF, simply because you want that credibility, so that people will say
they are not going to the IMF.
Well, I hope we don't. I hope they are successful with trying to syndicate these loans and trying to do things in real time to fix the things they have to fix. I think the other challenge is what exactly these loans are used for, apart from retiring old debt. The quality of investments we are making in our economy has been called to question. If you spend billions in food and plenty for food and jobs and you are not seeing the effect, I mean, you're supposed to have a buffer, right? Don't come back and tell me that, oh, the warehouses are not working, the finance ministry is not releasing funds. What was the plan? What was actually the plan? Because this whole idea was to build sufficient buffers against food insecurity. But as we speak, we are actually food insecure because we are not able to buy it at the price that we have to buy it, right? So I feel that that dispassionate conversation must be had, and maybe the government statistician has pointed the way. We need to get people around the table, the likes of Dr. Sarkodie, Lord Mensah. The academia should be heavily represented this time around, so that it doesn't look as if it's just a conversation for politicians. And if you hear them speak, they speak from the same tune. Walkman, Sarkodie, Lord Mensah, speaking almost on the same sheet, that the situation is much dire than we thought it was.
I'll come to Ambassador in a bit. I want to stay with Dr. Sarkodie to explore a few things. So, I was reading an article this week on possible solutions to problems like what we have. And one said that perhaps we should consider Keynesianism in this space where the government pursues rigorous mobilization of funds for job creating investments in infrastructure, agri, labor intensive manufacturing, and agro process. No, I'm just coming. And the government says they are doing USTART.
Yes.
As an intervention of some sort. Does that make sense in trying to alleviate the situation we have, whilst considering Franklin's position on you might also need to go to the IMF?
Whether it is Keynesian or classicals or monetarist approach or theory, the idea is you must understand the dynamics of the Ghanaian economy. Our economy, the context of our economy is totally different from those economies where those theories were propounded. I am a lecturer, and so I teach those theories. We don't teach them and say that go and lift everything and go impose on somebody. You know the theory, and then given the circumstances,
you find this.
You either apply this or that or modify it. Okay, that is why my boss, I mentioned, he always tells me that there's nothing like free market. He doesn't believe in free market. He thinks that everything must be managed. So you give a certain room for it to be free, but still it must not go beyond a certain boundary. What we have done, in researching in the Fourth Republic, and it's very interesting that you've raised this question. We did a research in the Fourth Republic to see whether capital expenditure has effect on GDP growth rate and employment, and what are the accompanying ingredients. The findings of the research was that a capital expenditure increase will have a positive impact on job creation and GDP if there is macroeconomic stability. So, yes. So the macroeconomic environment is key for any investment or any new start, any employment program. The environment must be sound. What are the environments? What are the key ingredients? Inflation. Inflation must be stable. It must return to single digit and must be stable. Exchange rate depreciation must be in a single digit and it must be stable. Public debt must fall below 60% and must be stable. You need these three to have the full gains of any policy. Any policy. You can, I'm not talking about Ivory Coast, I'm not talking about Nigeria, I'm talking about Ghana. And we have taken our time to research. In the Fourth Republic, we took data from 1993 and ran. Yes, please.
Check a bit. Would you also submit the quality of the expenditure?
Yes.
Because clearly speaking, in our parts, is the quality, what investment, the returns you are making on all this investment. They put up even the procurement alone is wrong. And so you started losing money from the time the procurement was done before the expense was spent on the project.
No, you're right.
So you may have a high public debt, but if the quality of the debt is wrong, then you have a challenge. So I agree the macro and the environment is important, but the efficiency of spending.
Excellent. There was a time we were experiencing, we had a number of projects which were done in the country, yet the construction subsector was going negative. The construction subsector was going negative when we were told that there were so many projects going on. It means there were leakages somewhere. Now, if you go to level 200 or 1100 classroom, you say GDP is better for C plus I plus J plus X minus M. This is theory and it's also practical. Now, the I, which is investment expenditure in the middle, is the total investment expenditure. It is not only coming from the government, the public expenditure. In other words, you need the private expenditure. So anytime people are talking about capital expenditure, investment expenditure, and all that, we should all remember that the ones we see in the budget is just the public one. And it's not enough. We need a private one to fuel growth. How do we get a private one? Stability. Okay. You need exchange rate stability, inflation stability, and the public debt stability. If not, you will not get the private ones. You only get the public. And Franklin is also right. Even if the public one, the quality is wrong, no matter the program that you want to put across, it's not going to yield any results.
All right. Let me come to Ambassador.
It's refreshing listening to Franklin and then Dr. Sarkodie. Have you taken a look at how the banks repatriate their profits? We bank in
the foreign ones.
Yes, we bank in cedis. Yes. But do they take cedis to Nigeria?
No.
Well, not only banks, but
multinationals.
And the churches.
Are you following me? The churches collect collections on Sunday.
Yes.
Tuesday, it should reach Nigeria.
Yeah.
A plane is waiting. And that is in dollars. So what would have happened? Sunday evening, they'll go to the Zamrama line and then they'll give all the collection to the man and mop up all the dollars away. The bank that do it, the mining sector will do it. Have you checked that? So all the policy things that Bank of Ghana is throwing, finance minister is throwing away. You can put all of them together. Next weekend, the money will go away. Are you listening to me? You see, I would want to listen to experts. Because in Ghana, our economy has become a political index. So, when the thing is black and we are saying it's red, eventually the true color will flow out. Not so. Bringing a policy, don't quote in dollars. I mean, who is buying in dollars? It's the government that is buying in dollars, not us. Are you following what I'm saying? We should check that also. Recently, I saw a lot of 2,000 Ghana cedis in circulation, plus 100 cedis, 200 cedis in circulation. Where are they? Is somebody telling him that the government mopped it up? Or some people gathered it and exchanged it and kept it in dollars?
Before resorting to mobile money.
But that should be the reverse because you want to evade e-levy, so it should have been cash rather.
You see, so you create problems with policies and you need better policies to resolve them. But if we are creating the same problems, we will never solve any problem. The two of them have spoken that we need some policy credibility. So put the experts, not politicians, into a room.
But some of the politicians are also experts.
Yes, I know. But then put them in an aggregate that is balanced and neutral. You can bring your NDC, MPP people who are economists. I mean, somebody like, say, Tekpa and the rest in the room, Franklin and the rest. Give us a Ghanaian solution and not MPP solution, not NDC solution. That's the only way out. It's not about we won't go to IMF or we go and when the fire catch your bottom, you run into the window, up through the window. Are you listening to what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Now, dissociate yourself and the station from what I'm going to say. Dissociate yourself.
I cannot. I have to regulate what you say.
For freshness, fresh air in the face of investors, the president should immediately remove the Greek minister.
Okay.
Why? Because the man is not interested in solving the national problems. He's interested in his own presidency. Go around the country, instead of planting food, he's planting signboards for his presidency. And I mean what I'm saying.
So you agree with Dr. Sarkodie that he's a big part of the problem?
He's a big part of the problem. Because you have run planting for food. And if something as meaningful as Agbolema, where does Agbolema come from? Maize. It's part of our food inflation, then we have a huge problem. When I was growing up in Accra, cassava, yes. Chief, when I was growing up in Accra, no Obechebe Lamte, there used to be a runabout. And there was a triangle. Every year, one strand of maize will grow in that one. Where in Ghana can you not plant maize and cassava? Where in Ghana? Chief. So, when the ordinary people were planting their cassava and maize, we didn't have food inflation this much. Now the government has taken billions of money into planting for food. Where are we? The last time I checked, donkeys were exporting fertilizer. Donkeys. If you sell fertilizer to farmers who do not have money, you go on their behalf, Massa, you go for syndicated loans, not so, to come and support agriculture and farmers. And then you sell the fertilizers to them. They are pleading, please, even we are going to buy. So bring the fertilizer to us. Now you say they should go and use organic fertilizer. Alan Chamati, you should have seen on your table that when we were leaving office, India government was prepared to give us $5 billion for fertilizer plant Asama. Why has he not followed it? Why has the Ministry of Trade and Industry not followed that loan? And now fertilizer is our big problem. Chief, you see, if we do the wrong things because of political exigency, we would definitely come to solve these problems we have. Check the trends. Anytime there's an election, the following periods, we have problems because we overspend in the election years. Check the trends. And this year, the last 5 years, it has been more than what we have been going through. Why? Our policies these days as a country is not for the growth of the economy. Our policies are for votes. Yes. Because otherwise, planting for food should not be a billboard issue. You are planting, let the farmers plant. Why do you raise a billboard? You say one industry, one factory, one industry. Why? How many billboards did your grandfather say Kwame Nkrumah posted on all the factories in Tema? And it is not that we don't know what we do. We know what to do, but the leaders to get us to do. When a champion came, he said, we had gone through a process of India. Chief, you remember that? Banasco brought this operation, feed yourself. So getting Ghanaians excited to go and do planting maize and cassava. Can't we do that, Eldo? That one we can't do. Chief, what I'm even worried is that the future generation are going to be starved because every inch of agricultural land is being turned into a real estate. Between Accra and Winneba, used to be farmland, people farming. Now it's becoming chains of real estate. Oyerefa, Damfa, all of those places used to be farmlands. Even in major countries, farmlands are preserved. In 10 years, around Accra will be all real estate. And what are we going to eat? See, there are practical solutions to the problems we are facing. It's not about GDP, whatever. Because after all, the GDP we are calculating, the ingredients are for foreigners. Not so. Not so. Yeah. Have you checked the profit of MTN? They are not telling about MTN. And we use that to calculate our GDP.
Because it's a domestic.
Domestic.
So, irrespective of whether it's for a foreign or...
It is part of it. But is it for us?
Well, they pay tax. So.
My friend. My friend.
Significant tax.
Yes, they do. But if it belonged to us, we would have taken both the tax and something else.
Well, somebody else can set another one up. The fact that we use the services alone means we are benefiting.
Yes, we are benefiting. But if the Ghana Telecom belonged to us, it should have been a major player now.
Well, we had it once and we ran
Yes, it's management of the politicians. You see, what I'm saying is that now the fact that we made a mistake does not mean that we should continue making these mistakes. Because in the end, we are seeing that whatever we mobilize, these people take it away. Your banks are not doing well. Indigenous banks are not doing well. Where are the experts who can straighten these things so that we would derive benefits from our indigenous banking sector? Boom! You needed 9 billion, now you are spending 20-something billion. They have created unemployment. They have created a lot of problems. So I am saying that our policies are not for growth, they are for votes. Because it is we who have created the problems. Chief, the market woman somewhere has not created any problem. We are talking about transportation because of diesel cost. You have your Kwame Nkrumah's tour. The monies we have spent over the years, we could have rebuilt the tour for production. Because if you refine your oil in Ghana, the byproducts alone can do a lot of work for you. But I want our politicians and our young technocrats to believe that this stage we will leave it. But what we leave behind the youth is more important than what we are doing now. Otherwise, Chief, have you seen Sri Lanka? I was in charge of Sri Lanka. It was doing well until a certain government came in. The president made his brother the prime minister, and they started going down, 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 down. Now Sri Lanka, what is happening? What is happening? I have seen countries where China is not taking over their investment. So it's important for our technocrats to be recognized properly, and the media, you also are part of the problem. You see, because instead of getting the right voice, they'll call some people usually because they're a politician to spew nonsense on air, and immediately call another politician to spew another nonsense. Why don't you get the right people to diagnose the problem and give us right solutions? Because now all of you are board members. So you are not able to put the president's feet to the fire.
All of us are board members.
Yes, now all of you are board members. You see that the agric minister is not doing well. You won't call him to book. You follow him and go and say, contain his 5 CDs. Then you publish it.
Interesting point, Ambassador.
Media, you are so proud of it. But when we were writing the constitution, that is why we had the media commission put aside, and properly funded, so that they can keep the media landscape properly guided. Today, what is happening? Today, what is the media commission itself doing? Look at my own GJ. We cannot even go to election. We are calling on government. We are calling on government for what? Democratic principle. GJ, we cannot go to elections.
It's okay. Let's stay on.
That is not okay.
I just want us to stay on track. I have 6 minutes to wrap up, so I will allocate it. So, Dr. Sarkodie, let me just wrap this up with you. You've looked at the strategy. You think that it needs further work. Franklin, you also do not like the strategy and think we should end up. We better make up our minds quickly. IMF or not. Did I get you right?
Well, I mean, in terms of just policy credibility, I mean, it's getting there. If a lot of what you need to develop is coming from outside, and you don't have the wherewithal, and the people who want to give you the money are saying, we don't trust you. They're saying, well, you probably get some schoolmaster to give you some credibility. But then that will mean you have to start being discipline yourself in some aspects of your management of the economy. I'm not an apostle of the IMF. I'm just telling you what some investors are thinking.
But anyway, Dr. Sarkodie, your final thoughts on this. I've just been going through a lot of material, and everyone that cites a bad example of inflation and cites Ghana these days, which is quite disappointing to read. I'm going through a US article right now, and Ghana is mentioned like 5 times. In like 6 paragraphs.
When we used to be poster boys for the IMF.
But how do we fix this?
You gave me a platform to be published.
Yes.
And I get emails every now and then because it looks like the international community is not interested in the Ghanaian economy, what is happening. So every time I get email, we read your article on conversation about this, the exchange rate inflation. We want to engage you more for further explanation and all that. This is not a good sign for our country. We must admit it. We must sit up and resolve it. Before COVID, in 2019, we did an analysis with 108 countries in the world. The interest payment as a ratio of revenue, Ghana was only better than Sri Lanka and Lebanon. Only 2 countries in the world. This was before COVID. Now we see the difficulties that Sri Lanka and Lebanon are going through. Currently, we spend 70% of our revenue and grants, total revenue and grants, to pay interest and amortization. This is not a good picture. We don't want to experience what is happening in Sri Lanka and Lebanon. We have to acknowledge that there's a problem, sit down and fix it. The problems are many. So it must be a comprehensive approach. It should not be left in the hands of the central bank because they are practicing inflation targeting and everything inflation should be left to them. They don't have the tools to resolve the supply side factors. So it should be everybody on board.
Have you seen a willingness on the supply side, the real side, from the finance ministry and co? Have you seen a willingness? I think we have admitted the BOG has shown willingness.
Yes.
Have you seen willingness from that side?
They have. The finance minister, after they had a meeting, and then Pediase, and then outlined a number of measures. Well, these were not real figures that could change anything significantly. At that time, they needed to calm the market. So I think it was necessary for him to make that pronouncement, and also for Dr. Baumia, to His Excellency, to make that his lecture, just to give an indication that they are doing something, just to calm the market. It was necessary at that time. But as to whether it's a permanent solution, at the point that where we find ourselves, they can't cut any expenditure. What are they going to cut? If they say that 20% that they said they want to cut, I'm happy that I was not in the room, because I would have asked them, because 20% of 100 billion is 20 billion. Yet the discretionary expenditure, I mean, it's just a little lower than 120 billion. So by the time you finish paying the statutory ones, your money is finished. So what are you going to cut? Are you going to cut the borrowing? So I wasn't there to ask. That's why you should have asked those questions, because you have a target of 100 billion and you are cutting 20. Where are you going to cut it from? Okay, so we have brought ourselves into this mess. I say we because I'm a Ghanaian. I'm saying Ghana. We have brought ourselves into this mess because when we finished the HIPIC in 2006, we realized that the growth rate of revenue has always fallen below the growth rate of borrowing. So that has been a compounding problem with us. We have compounded the problems every now and then, and we find ourselves in this mess. So what should we do? The central bank, I have said that, even a friend told me that they should just leave the interest rate. I don't know how. I haven't done the calculation. I haven't done the calculation to see, because you need this modeling to see that if you leave the policy rate, what will happen. But my friend was saying that time and again, you increase the interest rate to fight inflation, and you're not winning. And then you end up giving the banks the chance to earn supernormal profits, and those at the real sector suffer. Something must be done. Whether we should leave the policy rate or not, I am saying that the trend, the path on which we are, is not good for us. We are not getting the results. So something must be fixed on the monetary side. Then we come to the supply side. We all agree about the local production. You have dependent on Russia and Ukraine for your fertilizer. Now there's war. You're not getting the fertilizer. Are you folding your arms to pray to God and say
the initiative?
To pray, you are folding your arms to pray to God and say there's no fertilizer, and God will tell you, I've given you brains, use it.
All right. Point well made. Let me take a quick message and then I will wrap this up. So, another academic, today I have a lot of academics sending me messages. I am happy the economists are watching. It says the finance minister says that controlling inflation is not his responsibility, and that is an irony. And then also says the problem of Ghana is irresponsibility on expenditure and leakages on the part of those in the fiscal space. Thank you very much to Dr. Edu Ususako, the lecturer from the Economics Department, University of Ghana, Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, Ambassador Sampiale, former CEO, National Pensions Regulatory Authority, labor experts, plenty things. We can say all of it. My name is Godfrey Akutobo. I hope you had a great show. Have a good weekend.